Professor, I live in Charleston, South Carolina.
Yes.
And just above Charleston is Hanahan, South Carolina. Within the corporate limits of Hanahan is the Charleston Naval Weapons Station.
Of course.
And there's a gulag there, the naval brig.
Right.
There's an American citizen that was there for 3.5 years, Jose Padilla.
Right.
Held there, denied habeas corpus. He must have had some good lawyers. They eventually got to the point where it was apparent that the Supreme Court was going to say, you can't deny this man habeas corpus. The administration said, well, this one isn't working, so they changed the charges on him. He's down in Florida now being charged.
Right.
How about comment on that?
Oh.
And you could probably say a whole lot.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I will say this. Jose Padilla had very good lawyers, and they're friends of mine, and I'm happy to recognize them here. What you described is accurate. What you should know, however, is that there is another gentleman there. There is a foreign national there named Mr. Almari, who was in the country lawfully, and he is the only person in the United States who remains designated as an enemy combatant. And they take the same position on him, that that they said with Padilla, that is, he doesn't have a meaningful right to challenge his detention. And that's going to go to the Supreme Court next term. I'm confident of that. The larger paradigm the larger pattern that you describe is a very interesting one. I guess I would make several observations. One is, they still maintain that they have the power, notwithstanding the fact that A, they don't use it very often, and B, there's been so much Supreme Court hostility to it. They still have the power to designate a person in this country, even not U.S. citizens if they're in this country, but foreign nationals who are here, even here lawfully, as enemy combatants and hold them without habeas. Part of their vision of a global war on terror is that their position is there is no battlefield except the entire planet, and so we can grab a person from anywhere on the planet and designate them an enemy combatant and treat them accordingly wherever they may be. The larger pattern you identified, though, is that just before an event happens that will definitively break that power, as in, for instance, the Supreme Court saying, no, you can't do that, they will moot out the case by removing the person. And exactly what you described happened. The petition for certiorari was pending in the U.S. Supreme Court. And just before the government was supposed to respond, they took Padilla down to Miami and made him part of an indictment there. That pattern has been replicated, not just in that case, but in several cases over and over again. Everyone's aware of it. Let me just tell you one quick story. The other case that came down the same time as Rasul was a case called Hamdi. And Hamdi was a U.S. citizen picked up in Afghanistan. And the conclusion in that case was, if you bring a U.S. citizen here, and he was also at the naval base in South Carolina, he gets the benefits of the Constitution. For years, they had been saying Hamdi is such a threat to the Union, he can't be given a lawyer, he can't be given habeas. We got to hold him incommunicado, locked up in this same facility. And completely isolated from each other. For instance, Hamdi and Padilla didn't even know that they were both in the prison at the same time. Well, they lose in the Supreme Court in Hamdi, and a judge in Virginia, Judge Dumar, here, says, after a bunch of back and forth, oh, I should tell you, they've been saying for 3 years how dangerous Hamdi is. The day after the Supreme Court grants Hamdi relief and says, give this guy a hearing, the government calls Hamdi's lawyer and says, can we settle this case? And the settlement was that Hamdi was going to be flown to his home in Saudi Arabia. He was a U.S. citizen, but he grew up in Saudi Arabia. And he had to make sure he reported if he was ever approached by any terrorists. And the other condition was he had to give up his U.S. passport. And I used to joke with his lawyer that that was a condition imposed by Hamdi. But what happened leading up to that was that while these negotiations were going on, the judge was getting frustrated. He said, look, this guy's entitled to a hearing. The Supreme Court said give him a hearing. And as a judge, these things take time. We're working out the details of it. And he said, okay, I've had enough of this. And he said, on Monday, he said this on a Monday. He said, a week from today, I want Hamdi in my courtroom. We're going to have a hearing. And you, United States, you're going to put on witnesses to justify why this U.S. citizen has been in custody for the last 3 years. All right? That Sunday, the day before the hearing, the government called the judge and said, we can cancel this hearing. He's been released. He's in Saudi Arabia. To this day, the United States government has yet to call its first witness in any enemy combatant case worldwide. They have yet to have a person testify, here's why this guy is an enemy combatant. They're yet to call the first witness. It has all been based on hearsay allegations. Sir?
What we're hearing tonight is mortifying, to say the least, and I think most of us are viscerally disturbed, to say the least, as well. Do you foresee a day when we might hear what preemptions may have been made as a result of this type of internment? Is there any positive side to it at all, other than the fact that you, I'm sure, get the question, well, we haven't been attacked as yet, have we?
Yes. What good has come of it? I mean, in other words, has there been any benefit that's come out of it? From the administration's perspective, you mean? Yeah. Well, in fairness, the administration claims that they have produced a great deal of valuable intelligence. They are particularly vociferous in that with regard to the CIA program, and maybe Joanne will talk about that tomorrow. They insist that the CIA program, where you subject people to even more aggressive interrogation techniques, has produced valuable intelligence. That obviously is not subject to verification. It's like the spray that I put in this room, the polar bear repellent, and the evidence is that it's obviously working. But yeah, you didn't even know. The reporting that I have looked at, and of course it's all classified, so it's very difficult to get public information. It's impossible to get public information, is that the question is not simply whether they have gotten useful intelligence. Obviously, that's not the question. The question is whether they could only have gotten this intelligence by applying these methods. Because, of course, if you could have gotten this intelligence through conventional means, then you would never have to have trampled on these time-honored principles. The best indication that I've seen is the answer to that question is no. Most of these guys, the information they've gotten is through the application of conventional methods, conventional interrogation methods. So have they gotten information? Yes. Did they need to do it? There's no evidence of that. Ma'am.
I'm one of the people who was next to you on the elliptical machine. The thing that strikes me about all this, and as I look at this, I see how, for example, how U.S. attorneys handle just normal cases, and talking about against American citizens in the court. And it seems to me that what we're seeing is basically the White House and the Department of Justice saying we can do whatever we damn well please to anybody we damn well please because we're the United States of America, and nobody ever tells us we're wrong. And it just seems to me that basically this is part of a larger war against everybody. That U.S. attorneys just kind of look at all of us as somebody waiting to go to prison one time or another.
Well, there's a sense in which that's a rhetorical question. A different talk that I give that I'll spare everybody now is it is commonplace to link what's happening now with prior periods of overreaction, internment and Lincoln's suspension of the writ. I think that you need to be a little bit more nuanced with that, and you touch on that. When Lincoln suspended the writ, when federal prosecutors prosecuted poor Molly Steiner in 1919 for throwing leaflets out the window of a tenement building in the Lower East Side, when we interned the Japanese, when we suspended habeas in Hawaii during World War II, those were domestic security measures that essentially had no effect beyond our shores. They were not things that rippled to an effect beyond our shores. When Joe McCarthy was railing against what he believed was communist infiltration in the State Department, it was a source of entertainment overseas. The difference now, and the very important difference now, is that now our dominant civil liberties restrictions domestically are having a devastating effect globally. Now the civil liberties consequence is principally targeted in the most volatile region in the world. And regrettably, our methods, and I believe this is an unintentional consequence, contrary to what the administration says, contrary to in fact what the administration believes, we have convinced, or we are close to convincing an entire region that this is not a war on terror, it is in fact a war on Islam.